a lot of money for national security, you do it.
Okay.
Period.
But then you got to decide whether that money is well spent on national security.
I think that's a fine discussion.
But that's where the discussion goes in, because, well, in my opinion,
But there is
that money.
There is a legitimate difference of opinion. So what McCain was talking about was not the war Bush administration, who's been spending all these billions of dollars on the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. What he's talking about is a 2006 Democratic Congress who has the lowest approval rating in history.
Yeah, about the same as the friggin' Republican Congress right before it. It's the same approval rating. It's just kind of stayed about the same.
Stayed out at 12% or whatever it is.
Studied about. It was at like 13%. Now it's at 12. Gee, it's all the Democrats' fault. Come on, I mean, dude.
Why would the public give Congress a 12% approval?
Because they haven't gotten much done. And why haven't they gotten much done? Because Bush has vetoed or threatened to veto everything that they've put out there. Everything. Like anything that they've tried to do, except for in their first 100 days. Remember that? They got a whole lot done. They increased the minimum wage. They did all this great stuff in the first 100 days. Great stuff.
You may think that's the reason they have the 12% opinion rating.
Dude, it doesn't just... You don't have like a 13% approval rating from the Republican Congress and then have it when everyone gets reelected and now it jumps to 50 and then you drop down from there. No. It was low and it stayed low because granted the Democrats did not get done what they wanted to get done, but guess what?
They also threatened to do stuff like not hold sessions and not pass budgets for the Iraq war and do all these political things that, in my opinion, didn't make them popular with the public.
It's hard to say what exactly made them not popular.
Yeah, it's speculation. And poll numbers don't tell you why. They just tell you that that's what the
fact remains that the Iraq war is extremely unpopular and that Bush was not budging an inch on any of it. He wouldn't do anything. He wouldn't talk about anything.
He would do a surge.
Well, that's just the opposite direction that we're talking, okay?
What are you talking about budging? Budging, see, that's the problem, is the spin on this is that the only way that Bush could have budged in an acceptable way was to pull out, or to do a timetabled withdrawal, or to admit that the cause was lost, and go home with our tail between our legs. And excuse me, but I think he made the right decision.
Okay, you do, but that's fine. But the point is, the reason they did those what you call political maneuvers is because that was the only choice they had left. They had to say something like, well, we're willing to pull the funding because that's the only thing Congress has is the funding. Because guess what? They haven't declared war.
Sure, which is what the public did not want. Otherwise, if they had threatened to pull the funding and then the approval ratings went up, then they would have been justified.
But that's the only thing Congress can do because they have not declared war. See, this is not a war, actually.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's sort of the problem of all this, is that Congress never declared war. So all of these, this is my favorite, like all of these people who said that, you voted to go to war, you're a Democrat, you voted to go to war. No, actually they didn't. There never was a vote on the war. There never was a vote to go to war. And if there was, then Congress might have a little more power to do something about it now.
I agree. That's an issue of semantics, No,
it's not.
Yes, because a definition of declaration of war, it can only be declared by Congress.
Right, but it's not a definition of semantics. It's a definition of governmental policy and the way it works and the way our government's supposed to work.
What I'm saying is they authorized George Bush to take whatever action, whatever means was necessary to protect the country and to get rid of Saddam Hussein.
I don't know if that was
roughly paraphrasing.
Roughly paraphrased
what they said. But they gave him authorization.
And then he went to war.
They authorized him to go to war.
No, they didn't. They did not authorize him to go to war. They authorized him to do what was necessary to eventually... But they were expecting him to come back and say, okay, now let's go to war. Vote on that. Never did that.
Do you know that they were expecting that?
When I was living through that, that's what I read about. That was...
I would say certain members in Congress may have expected that. But, now we're getting into things that, totally. 8 years ago or 5 years ago, sorry. Let's bring this back to to Palin. Let's bring this back to the Palin.
Let's bring it back to Palin. Let me go on that.
Let's bring this back to the incredibly bold, incredibly risky, but incredibly unifying decision to select Palin.
Unifying of the Republican Party? Yeah, that was a...
and not only that,
it brought in the religious conservatives like yourself.
It did. It engaged the conservative constituency back into the mix.
And you don't think that so you as the religious conservative constituency, with reservations about McCain, are willing to just jump right on the bandwagon for the vice?
Well, let me just say that my reservations about McCain were, because I watched him over the last several months, and I posted this about the Rick Warren Saddleback Forum, and I said that how he answered those questions really made me much more comfortable supporting him as compared to how Obama answered the questions, which I thought were not as in line with what I believe and what I hold to be the most important issues. So that's first. Second, when he brings Palin, I think just from a political perspective, he would have had a problem if he brought Lieberman in. I think he would have gotten a lot of moderates and probably a lot of, more moderate Democrats, Reagan Democrats or whatever constituency you want to call them. But I think he would have guaranteed that a lot of the conservative constituencies would have stayed at home.
Right.
And he can't afford to do that to win an election. He just can't. That's just the nature of the beast. So that's why I think picking her, somebody who comes from a religious perspective, is socially fairly conservative, and fiscally and economically with this windfall taxes and that kind of stuff, you could argue that she's more mavericky in that regard. Which is fine. Which is fine.
Let me tell you how that reads to my side of the aisle. Is I agree that it was risky. I agree that it brought in the religious conservatives and that he kind of needed to do that. But you know what I think? It's insulting to women.
How on
and
earth?
Let me explain why.
How on earth is it insulting to women?
It is insulting to women because it is a clear choice. Not because she is a qualified woman, not because she was somebody who deserves to be on the ticket. She is there.
I would absolutely disagree with that.
She is there because she is a woman, period, and he felt like he needed something like a woman to pull in those Hillary voters.
And you know what?
And that not only that, but that even the whole evangelical thing was just a political stunt. The whole thing feels like a political stunt.
Do you understand that you saying that the only reason she's there on the ticket is because she's a woman is the same as the equivalent or the parallel would be the only reason Obama is where he is because he's black?
No,
I mean,
it's
that's
not.
completely unfounded.
No, it's not. It's not exactly. It's totally not the same because Obama was not chosen by one person over one conversation. Okay? Obama was chosen by 18 million people who had heard about him for months. Totally not just because he was black. Palin was chosen by one guy who already had vetted all the other people, and at the very last minute he has this conversation with this woman who happens to be the Alaska governor. She doesn't have any particular credentials. Okay. Yes, she has the evangelical credentials.
Well, she has 8 years of executive experience.
And by the way, I didn't say it was the only reason. I agreed that the evangelical thing was another big reason that she was brought in.
She has 8 years of executive experience, and she has an 80% approval rating in her home country.
You sound like Karl Rove. You sound like Karl Rove because Karl Rove is executive experience of a 9,000 person mayor.
She is a popular Republican governor. And guess what? There's not a governor in the race up until she was added. Which in my opinion is a mistake because legislators, by definition, do not have experience in governing.
Mitt Romney is a popular governor.
Right.
But he's a man.
Right.